You can't really prepare for something like this, can you? They tell you about it, you read about it, but nothing truly gets you ready for the moment that bag drops over your head. That sudden, suffocating darkness. And then, the first hit comes when you least expect it, a jolt that rips through your entire being. In that instant, it's like you cease to be a person. You're just a thing, a target. That's the chilling reality, the brutal opening act for thousands of Palestinians caught in a system designed to break them. That haunting voice, that raw testimony, it belongs to Youssef A. He's just 27, a carpenter from Ramallah, a young man who, just months ago, had a life, a trade, a future. 2 months back, he stumbled out of Ktziot Prison in the vast, unforgiving Nakab Desert. He was on crutches, his body a shadow of its former self, 18 kilos lighter than the day Israeli troops, under the cloak of pre-dawn darkness, dragged him from his bed at 3 a.m. last December. There were no charges, no trial, no due process. Just a chillingly simple 6-month administrative detention order, a bureaucratic weapon that can be renewed indefinitely, forever. Youssef isn't some abstract symbol or a statistic to be quickly forgotten. He's a human being, a story we desperately need to follow, to understand, while the numbers, staggering and cold, roll behind him. Since October 2023, Israel has been holding roughly 9,800 Palestinian security prisoners. Think about that for a second. Almost 10,000 lives. Of those, a shocking 3,380 are trapped under administrative detention, just like Youssef, with no end in sight. And the vulnerability deepens. 200 of them are children, some as young as 12, and 67 are women. Add those numbers together, try to wrap your mind around them, and you still won't grasp the sheer terror, the profound degradation, the raw, visceral texture of what truly happens once that heavy steel door slams shut. It's a world apart, a reality most of us can barely fathom. Let's get specific, shall we? Because words matter, especially when we're talking about something as horrific as torture. Under international law, torture isn't some vague concept. It's meticulously defined. It's severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental, intentionally inflicted on a person for such purposes as obtaining from him or a third person information or a confession, punishing him for an act he or a third person has committed or is suspected of having committed, or intimidating or coercing him or a third person, or for any reason based on discrimination of any kind. And here's the kicker. Israel actually ratified the UN Convention Against Torture in 1991. You'd think that would mean something, right? But in a move that can only be described as a cynical legal maneuver, Israel's own Supreme Court carved out a gaping loophole. They declared that moderate physical pressure is permissible in those infamous ticking bomb cases. Sounds clinical, doesn't it? Moderate physical pressure. But what does moderate actually look like on the ground, in the dark corners of a prison cell? What does it feel like? Physicians for Human Rights Israel, an organization tirelessly documenting these abuses, cataloged a staggering 1,144 complaints of torture and ill treatment between 2020 and 2023. And their findings are sickening. A horrifying 93% of those complaints included beatings to the torso while the detainee was cuffed, often leaving severe bruising and broken ribs. In 62% of cases, detainees endured sexual humiliation, a weapon used to strip away dignity and instill profound shame. Nearly half, 48%, reported prolonged positional torture, forcing bodies into unnatural, agonizing positions for hours on end until muscles scream and joints lock. And in 11 documented cases, the detainee never made it out alive. This isn't moderate pressure. It's a deliberate, systematic campaign of cruelty, a stark violation of every international human rights standard, turning prisons into what B'Tselem, another Israeli human rights group, has starkly called torture camps. The first 48 hours in detention are often the most critical, designed to shatter a person's will and set a terrifying tone for what's to come. Youssef says he was kept in a corrugated metal shipping container, baking under the sun or freezing in the night, outside a West Bank military base for a harrowing 26 hours. His hands were zip-tied behind his back, cutting off circulation, and a sack, reeking of diesel, was pulled over his head, every breath a noxious reminder of his captivity. No water, no toilet breaks, his legs swelling painfully from the lack of movement and the heat. It's a calculated assault on basic human needs, designed to induce extreme discomfort and disorientation. When the sack finally came off, he wasn't free. He was inside a corridor painted entirely black, a visual void mirroring the emptiness he felt. The air was thick with a cacophony of fear, dogs barking, someone screaming in Arabic, piercing the darkness, and chillingly, someone else laughing in Hebrew, a sound of casual cruelty that amplified the terror. Then, a guard pressed the cold, hard muzzle of an M16 assault rifle against his neck, the weapon's weight a physical manifestation of absolute power, and whispered, a voice laced with menace, "Welcome to the end of the world." This wasn't just a physical space. It was a psychological battlefield, designed to break him before anything else even began. After the initial shock, the disorientation, came the chair. Not just any chair, but the instrument of what's known as shabay, Israel's notorious signature stress position. Imagine this. Your wrists cuffed tightly behind your back, your ankles chained to a tiny kindergarten-sized plastic chair bolted immovably to the floor. Your head is covered by a thick, suffocating sack, plunging you into darkness. And then, just 20 centimeters from your face, a 200-watt floodlight blazes, a searing, inescapable glare. To complete this sensory overload, death metal music or saccharine Hebrew ballads are blasted at 95 decibels, an auditory assault designed to prevent sleep and fragment thought. You're forced to sit like that, unmoving, for up to 20 hours. Try to shift your weight, to find even a sliver of relief, and a guard will kick the chair leg, a sharp, painful reminder of your helplessness. Youssef endured 9 consecutive days in this hellish shabay, his body screaming, his mind under siege. Interrogators relentlessly demanded he confess to throwing stones at a settler convoy, a convoy he swears he had never even seen. It was an impossible demand, a forced narrative. On the 10th day, utterly exhausted, broken, and desperate for the torment to end, he signed a statement. It was written in Hebrew, a language he cannot read, a testament to the sheer coercion and his complete powerlessness in that moment. This isn't interrogation. It's a systematic dismantling of a human being. The repertoire of torture techniques extends far beyond the shabay, often escalating during failed interrogations when detainees refuse to confess to crimes they didn't commit or provide information they don't possess. Electric shock episodes, for instance, frequently cluster around these moments of resistance. Human rights NGOs have collected 312 affidavits describing the chilling application of electrodes clipped to fingers, nipples, and even genitals. The goal isn't just pain, but terror, the absolute violation of the body's integrity. Waterboarding, while perhaps less frequent, is unequivocally documented. The detainee is strapped to a tilting board, a cloth placed over their mouth and nose, and water is poured relentlessly until the gag reflex triggers, simulating the terrifying sensation of drowning. It's a psychological and physical assault that leaves no visible marks, but inflicts profound, lasting trauma. And then there are the dogs, not just barking in the distance, but used as instruments of fear and pain. Amnesty International's 2023 report includes a harrowing photo of a 17-year-old from Jenin, his chest marred by circular burn marks, the diameter of a cigarette. He recounted how interrogators would let a security dog lunge at him, stopping just short enough that the hot ash from the guard's cigarette dangling casually would drop onto his chest. Other reports detailed dogs being allowed to urinate on detainees or attack them directly. This isn't about obtaining information. It's about terror, dehumanization, and the casual, sadistic exercise of power, reducing human beings to prey. Now, this is the part where many people, understandably, want to scroll past. It's ugly, it's deeply disturbing, and it forces us to confront the darkest corners of human cruelty. But please, read it anyway. Because turning away makes us complicit in the silence that allows such horrors to persist. B'Tselem, the Israeli human rights organization, interviewed 26 ex-prisoners released since October. What they uncovered is beyond appalling. 16 men and 3 women reported explicit rape threats, a constant psychological terror aimed at breaking their spirit and instilling profound fear. But it didn't stop at threats. 9 men, in their testimonies, reported actual penetration with objects, a brutal, invasive violation of their bodies and their dignity. And 4 women described being subjected to forced nudity, while guards, mocking their vulnerability, took selfies, turning their humiliation into a perverse trophy. One woman, now just 21 years old, became incontinent after what a doctor later classified as a traumatic fistula, a devastating physical injury that will forever mark her. She still wakes up screaming, her nights haunted by the unspeakable. And so do the mothers who hear her story, their own hearts breaking with a pain that transcends mere empathy. These aren't isolated incidents. Human rights groups like Amnesty and Human Rights Watch have documented a broad spectrum of sexual violence, including gang rape and sexualized torture, against men, women, and children. It's a deliberate weapon, used to inflict the deepest possible wounds, physical and psychological, on individuals and their communities. Here's a chilling fact. Israel is the only country in the world that systematically tries children in military courts. Let that sink in. Not some rogue state, but a nation that claims to uphold democratic values. Defense for Children International. Palestine has documented a shocking 1,591 nighttime arrests of Palestinian minors in 2023 alone. Imagine the terror of being a child ripped from your bed in the dead of night, often by armed soldiers, blindfolded and handcuffed without your parents knowing where you're going. The average age of these detained children? A heartbreaking 13.6 years. Their most frequent charge, stone throwing, an act that, in this military system, carries a maximum sentence of 20 years. These aren't just kids. They're children subjected to the same brutal system as adults. They get the same tiny chairs, the same suffocating sacks, the same blaring, disorienting music. One 14-year-old boy, interviewed by Youssef, recounted a particularly cruel tactic. He was shown a photo of his school and told, unequivocally, that every single classmate would be jailed unless he named the boy who planned a protest, an impossible, soul-crushing choice for a child. He named someone. The next week, he saw that boy in the prison yard, his face so swollen and disfigured from beatings that it was beyond recognition. This is the reality for Palestinian children in Israeli military detention, a system designed to traumatize, coerce, and break the most vulnerable members of society. Under Article 91 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, a fundamental principle of international humanitarian law, prisoners must be examined weekly. It's a safeguard, a basic human right. But in practice, for Palestinian detainees, this principle is routinely, systematically violated. Guards deliberately withhold vital medication, insulin for diabetics, epilepsy pills for those prone to seizures, chemotherapy for cancer patients. It's not just neglect. It's a calculated form of torture, a slow, agonizing death sentence for many. Youssef, our carpenter, is diabetic. He recounts how his glucose levels peaked at an alarming 480 milligrams per deciliter, a life-threatening number. Desperate, with no medical intervention, another detainee, a doctor himself, taught him a horrific survival tactic: to drink his own urine to trigger vomiting and, hopefully, lower his blood sugar. Meanwhile, the official prison service logs, in a twisted bureaucratic fiction, list refused medication as inmate's choice. It's a lie that absolves them of responsibility, a cruel mockery of human suffering. When detainees finally collapse, too weak or ill to stand, they're taken to the prison clinic. But even there, the cruelty continues. They're shackled to the bed frame, often sedated without any proper examination, their cries for help silenced, their pain ignored. Physicians for Human Rights Israel has explicitly stated that this isn't mere medical neglect. It's a deliberate policy, a systemic denial of care used as punishment, with doctors often complicit by failing to document abuse or returning injured detainees to interrogations. It's a violation of medical ethics and international law, turning healthcare into another tool of oppression. Imagine this nightmare. Your son, a vibrant 15-year-old, simply disappears, and for 60 agonizing days, you're told absolutely nothing. No phone call, no lawyer, no Red Cross visit because he's deemed a security detainee. The silence is deafening, filled only with your own escalating fear. This is the reality for countless Palestinian families. Mothers describe standing for 9 hours outside Ofer Military Court, their hearts pounding with a fragile hope, only to be told dismissively that the session has been moved to a secret location. It's a deliberate tactic of psychological warfare designed to inflict maximum stress and uncertainty. Wives become single parents overnight, their lives upended. Many lose their jobs because Israeli employers, fearful of security relatives, refuse to hire them. The economic and social fabric of families is torn apart. And the children left behind? They don't escape unscathed. They stop going to school, their education disrupted by trauma. They wet the bed, a regression born of fear and anxiety. They hit classmates, acting out the violence they've witnessed or internalized. A WHO survey in 2022 found that a staggering 54% of households with a detained member meet the criteria for family-wide PTSD. It's not just an individual's trauma, it's a collective wound deeply scarring generations. The grim tally of lives lost behind bars continues to rise. Since October 2023, at least 78 Palestinians have died inside Israeli prisons, or shortly after their release. The official explanation from the ministry? Almost always cardiac arrest. It's a convenient, sterile phrase that masks a far more brutal truth. But autopsies, painstakingly conducted by Palestinian doctors, paint a starkly different picture. They reveal broken ribs, hemorrhaged kidneys, electric burns, injuries consistent with severe physical abuse and torture. The most recent case, 34-year-old Arafat Hamdan, bore a bruise shaped unmistakably like a rifle butt across his lumbar spine. These aren't natural deaths. They are deaths that cry out for justice, for accountability. Yet, Israel routinely seals the investigation files for security reasons, effectively burying the truth and preventing families from suing or even understanding what happened to their loved ones. The message is chillingly clear. You can lose your life in this system, and you won't even be afforded the dignity of a transparent investigation. Your death will be a silent, unacknowledged tragedy, another statistic in a system built on impunity. Behind every cold statistic, every percentage point, is one human body, one fractured life, one story of unimaginable pain. Let's return to Youssef. He now walks with a pronounced limp, a permanent reminder of the tibia fracture he sustained from a boot, a bone that healed crooked without a cast. The nerve damage in his wrists, a result of prolonged shackling and abuse, sends excruciating, shooting pains all the way up to his shoulders, making it impossible to hold his newborn daughter for longer than 5 minutes. He can't embrace her fully, can't feel her weight without agony. His wife whispers that he grinds his teeth so loudly in his sleep, a guttural sound of unconscious torment, that it wakes her. His nights are a continuation of his prison ordeal. And then, there are the moments that shatter his fragile peace. When the mosque loudspeaker crackles to life for the call to prayer, his heart races, pounding at 140 beats per minute, and he instinctively dives under the nearest table, his body reacting to a perceived threat that isn't there. The floodlight, the loud music, the sudden noises, they're all etched into his psyche. This is what moderate physical pressure truly looks like, 2 months after release. This is the lingering, insidious impact of torture, probably for the rest of his life. It's a testament to the fact that the suffering doesn't end when the prison gates open. It becomes an invisible, yet ever-present, companion. The question then becomes, how does this systematic abuse continue unchecked? The answer lies in a deeply entrenched dual legal regime. Israeli civilians, those living within Israel proper, enjoy the protections of Israeli civil law, with full due process rights, the presumption of innocence, and access to legal recourse. But for Palestinians in the West Bank, it's a different world entirely. They live under military law, a system where an officer can impose administrative detention for renewable 6-month chunks, based on secret evidence that neither the detainee nor their lawyer is allowed to see. It's a legal black hole, designed to deny justice and maintain control. The UN Committee Against Torture has repeatedly, explicitly, asked Israel to criminalize torture. Not once, not twice, but 12 times. And each time the Knesset, Israel's parliament, has refused, claiming that existing assault laws are sufficient. This deliberate legislative void means there's no specific crime of torture, making it incredibly difficult to prosecute. When complaints are filed, they go to the Department for Investigation of Police and Border Police, a body that in 2022 indicted exactly 0.7% of the complaints it received. It's a mechanism for whitewashing, not for justice. And even when, in rare instances, soldiers are convicted, the sentences are often a slap on the wrist, averaging a mere 6 weeks of military labor. This sends a clear, chilling message. The lives and suffering of Palestinians are of little consequence, and those who inflict pain will face minimal repercussions. This systemic impunity is not an accident. It is by design, protecting the perpetrators and perpetuating the cycle of abuse. The international community's response to these documented abuses is, frankly, a study in selective outrage and political convenience. The International Criminal Court, recognizing the gravity of the situation, opened a formal investigation into the situation in Palestine in 2021. But Israel, asserting that the ICC lacks jurisdiction and that it can investigate itself, refuses to cooperate. It's a classic move: deny, deflect, and obstruct. And what about the world's most powerful nations? The United States continues to send a staggering $3.8 billion in military aid annually to Israel, a significant portion of which is explicitly earmarked for prison security systems. It's a direct financial lifeline, indirectly supporting the very infrastructure where these abuses occur. European parliaments, meanwhile, pass resolutions calling for restraint on both sides, a morally equivalent statement that ignores the vast power imbalance, then promptly renew lucrative trade agreements. It's business as usual, a prioritization of economic ties over human rights. And in a cynical geopolitical game, China and Russia weaponize the issue diplomatically, using it to criticize Western hypocrisy without genuinely pushing for concrete sanctions or meaningful change. The status quo, it seems, is comfortable for almost everyone, for the powerful nations who continue to fund and enable, for the politicians who offer empty words, and for the systems that benefit from the silence. Everyone, that is, except the people trapped inside the sacks, the cells, the administrative detention orders. Everyone except the Palestinians enduring the brutal reality of torture. If you've made it this far, if you've listened to Youssef's story, if you've absorbed the chilling facts and figures, then you understand the weight of what's happening. Now do the one thing that actually costs you nothing, but can make all the difference. Make it impossible to ignore. Don't let this end here. Share this video. Email it to your representative, your local elected official. Demand they take action. Demand accountability. Paste the reports from Amnesty International, from B'Tselem, from Physicians for Human Rights Israel, into your group chats, onto your social media, anywhere and everywhere. The links are in the description. Algorithms are designed to bury videos like this, to keep uncomfortable truths out of sight, out of mind. The only way around them, the only way to break through the digital noise and the deliberate silence, is you. Your voice, your action, your refusal to look away. That's how we chip away at impunity. I started this conversation with Youssef's first terrifying moments in detention, the bag over his head, the first unexpected blow. Let me end it with his first morning of freedom, a moment that should have been pure relief, unadulterated joy. He stepped out, felt the warm sun on his face, a sensation he'd been denied for months. But instead of relief, he felt a wave of crushing panic, because the bright, natural light reminded him, viscerally, of the blinding floodlight pointed at his eyes during his Shabbat torture. Torture doesn't stop when the door opens. It lingers. It lives in every sunrise, every loud noise, every unexpected touch, every memory. It embeds itself in the body, the mind, the very soul. If we forget that, if we allow ourselves to believe that release equals healing, that silence equals peace, we become complicit. So remember the numbers, remember the chairs, remember the sacks, remember the names, but most of all, remember the people still inside them tonight, enduring what Youssef endured, waiting for a freedom that might never truly arrive. Their suffering is real, and it demands our attention.